Hello, my name is Bassem Abumona, and this is my final project on the Airlines dataset. First off, what is an abstraction? An abstraction is the process of turning real-world entities and phenomena into data. In this project, I abstracted airline data into a list of airline reports. Each of these reports has a number of properties relevant to my project, and the questions I want to pose. So the month is an integer property that represents the corresponding number of the month from which this data was pulled, which will be useful when analyzing trends over time or from specific time periods. Delayed is an integer property that represents the number of flights that were delayed within a given month or year. And name is a string property that represents the name of the airport from which the data was pulled, which will be useful when filtering for one specific airport as opposed to all airports in the United States. Year is an integer property that represents the year the data was recorded in, which will be useful when analyzing trends in data over time. Canceled is an integer property that represents the number of flights that were canceled within a given time frame. Late aircraft is an integer property that represents the number of flights that were delayed due to a previous flight with the same aircraft arriving behind schedule within a given time frame. And lastly, we have weather, which is an integer property that represents the number of weather-related delays within a given time frame. For the most part, the dataset is pretty feature complete. However, there are a couple of limitations. So the dataset unnecessarily creates more than one value for each year available in the dataset, thereby causing instances where one output value will correspond to multiple of the same number year. You'll see more on what I'm talking about later in the presentation, specifically when I get to my line plot. And considering the fact that most of the airports represented in the dataset are international airports, it would have given greater global context and understanding if the dataset included international airports from around the world, not just one specifically relegated to the United States soil. So something very important to notice about the structure of this dataset is that this is not the whole dataset. This is just the dictionaries I picked out that were relevant to the questions I wanted to pose and answer. Secondly, this is all just a list of dictionaries, and within them are all the keys that I use. So first off, the name key is a string value located within the dictionary associated with the airport key. The late aircraft and weather keys are both integer values located within the dictionary associated with the number of delays key. Similarly, the canceled and delayed keys are integer values located within the dictionary associated with the flights key. Lastly, the month and year keys are integer values located within the dictionary associated with the time key. So now on to my first question. How do the distributions of delayed flights across all airlines and airports compare during the month of April versus the period of November through December annually? So to answer that question, I have created two histograms. On the left, you have the distribution of delayed flights in April, and on the right is the distribution of delayed flights during the holidays, namely during the months of November and December. The number of airports delaying flights during the holidays is more than double that of April. Accordingly, the number of delays in most every bin are dramatically higher during the holidays than they are during the relatively quiet month of April. So now on to question 2. How do the general trends in canceled versus delayed flights compare from the year of 2003 to 2016 at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport? But first off, an important background question. Why that airport in particular? To answer that, I pulled a quote from the Business Insider to answer it. The Airports Council International recently released its list of the busiest airports in the world. Once again, Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, ADL, took the top spot with more than 104 million passengers in 2016. According to the ACI, this represents an increase in traffic of over 2.6% over 2015. A trade group attributes Atlanta's success to its strategic location, where it is within a 2-hour flight of 80% of the US population. And that is why I picked Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport over all the other ones in this dataset. Unfortunately, the dataset has created multiple values for each year ranging from 2003 to 2016. That's the reason for the odd shape of the graph. However, the general trend is intact, and it shows that the number of canceled flights pales in comparison to that of delayed flights. And while neither are particularly a good thing, as a flyer, you would rather have your flight be delayed than canceled. Now on to my third and final question. Is there a general correlation between weather-related delays and those that stem from late aircraft arrivals at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport? To answer that particular question, I have made the scatter plot that unfortunately shows that there is no correlation between aircraft arriving late and weather-related delays. There's just no general trend or pattern in these data that would suggest otherwise. So now for the social implications. Who's affected by this all anyway? So the stakeholders include people looking to fly during the holidays and are interested in the frequency of delays across the United States, potential flyers, and in some cases, my questions specifically from ATL, interested in flying into, out of, or somewhere else in the United States and are looking to be informed as to the trend in canceled versus delayed flights and the impact of weather-related delays on late aircraft. Thirdly, we have the airports and airlines, and in addition to those they employ, the flyers, and this is important, the city wherein the airport is geographically located are all stakeholders. Lastly, we have the United States EPA, which has vested interest in airports due to the amount of air pollution they contribute to the atmosphere. Now, for potential conflicts, the airports place a great amount of strain on their host city's infrastructure, namely the roads and traffic, which it causes a great amount of and has a potential to affect not only the people who are flying and need to get to the airport, but the citizens not affiliated. They will have to contend with this traffic. And now for another potential conflict, perhaps the most economically favorable decisions for airports regarding the consumption of fuel might not be the best for the environment, thereby causing conflict between the airports and airlines and the policies of the United States EPA. This is particularly salient when you are considering that there are drastically more flights taking place during the holidays as opposed to any time of the year. Thank you for watching this presentation. I hope you enjoyed it.